Hello listeners, and welcome to episode number 2 of The Real Game Talk. I'm your host, Daniel Lima, and this is a podcast about the games that was originally supposed to be a boring monologue with just me, but that I eventually decided to transform into a different thing. Now, every week, I receive diverse guests in here to discuss our thoughts about different, sometimes serious, sometimes not, random topics related to the video game industry. This week specifically, I decided to invite the most innocent, 7-foot-tall Sasquatch from Florida, my good friend, Aaron Kleker.
How's it going, guys?
What's up, Aaron? And once again, returning to Real Game Talk after a great debut in the first episode, hardcore Google Chrome fan, who also happens to be the man who played all the Oompa Loompas on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Roberto Rubiano.
What's up? Thanks for having me back, Dan.
No problem.
I'll tell you, man, that role was difficult to play all those Oompa Loompas.
Alright, good. I imagine. We've all been friends for a while, including Kleker, who is the new guy in here, the new voice in Real Game Talk today. But I actually don't have a lot of insight, Kleker, on what kinds of games do you like, what kind of consoles do you own or have owned throughout your life, what are your favorite franchises? I'm legitimately curious about that, so why don't you go and just talk a little bit about, what are your favorite games?
Sure. So, the very first console I played was the Super Nintendo, and the very first game I played, and the best memory I have, is a little game called Donkey Kong Country.
Oh man, I fucking love Donkey Kong Country.
It's such a good game. So, with that note, I'm actually a huge Nintendo fan. Nintendo always does really good, solid gameplay. And then they might lack on graphics, but the gameplay is so solid, and it's always just fun to play their games. So I'm a huge Nintendo fan. So the very first console I actually owned was the N64. And then after the N64, I got a PS2, then an Xbox 360, and now I have a PS3, Xbox 360, an Xbox 360, and a Wii U.
Right.
So those are all my current consoles, but my favorite game's definitely Donkey Kong Country. I tend to play first-person shooters with friends, and I love platformers, and I've started really enjoying JRPGs.
That's cool. So have you
a little bit by myself?
Sure. You talked a little bit about Donkey Kong Country. Have you played the one on the Wii U? Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze?
I've played both of them.
Oh, what do you think about that one?
The first one is awesome and spectacular because you go through the game normally, right?
You're talking about Returns?
Yeah, in Donkey Kong Country Returns, you go through the game normally, and you're playing through it, and then you beat it, and then they give you a hard mode, which is just, you no longer have, you just don't have Diddy, it's all donkeys. That in itself is hard, because how they did Diddy in that game is Diddy actually can, protect you because he has a hover,
right.
And that in platformers, that's a godsend.
Yeah, and I can't even imagine how to play that without Diddy, to be honest, because the game by itself was already hard enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's so difficult, but even beyond that, when you went to do time trials, when you played through the game normally, you didn't really notice how perfectly they placed objects to get in your way when doing time trials. And it was just brilliantly designed. And the level design was spectacular because it not only was fun to play normally, but when you speedrun, you had all these different obstacles that you didn't even notice were there when you were normally playing the game.
And I think they introduced the kind of different planes mechanic where you can be playing on the forward plane and then you can go on a barrel and be thrown in the back and that kind of thing. And I thought that was really cool. Also, there are a lot of levels where there are monsters on the back kind of interacting with you as you play the level.
Yeah, I really liked the monster chasing scenes in Donkey Kong Country Returns. It gave you a sense of urgency.
Right.
I still remember to this day the one in Donkey Kong Country Returns. There's these spiders that chase you.
Right.
And they're constantly just after you, and you're in this tree, and you have to go up and down and up this tree, and it's really fun. There's a huge sense of urgency, and you're trying to collect all this stuff while going through. It's really fun.
I really like the Wii U one as well, to be honest. I think it's kind of underappreciated. What do you think about that one?
The Wii U one is definitely really good. I really like it. I feel like the addition to some of the Kongs were spectacular. Like, I
Yeah.
really like Cranky Kong. I'm glad he's actually in a game and is playable. Because you
Yeah.
always see Cranky Kong as just like the Kong that's like, Donkey Kong, you fool, I'm so much better than you.
Right.
But now you can actually play as Cranky Kong and, like, be better than Donkey. So it was cool. I really liked the additions to the game. I'm glad they brought back underwater, and actually, underwater still felt nice. Like one
And
thing
the
the
music
original
is so
Donkey,
good. The music
yeah,
underwater is so good. Go ahead.
yeah, the soundtracks for all Donkey Kong games are amazing. But one thing the original Donkey Kong game did really well was water. It's one of the only games where I
Right.
actually liked being in the water.
That's true. I
Most
agree with that. Yeah.
most of the time, water's very clunky and it's not very fun. But like Donkey Kong has always is made it fluid and how water should be,
Fluid.
and um, it's fun. It's really cool, and I'm glad they added water combat again, and it was really cool. I really enjoyed it, and I liked how each Kong had a different property underwater. So like if you're Dixie and you're on Donkey Kong's back, you could like spin your hair and go really fast underwater. Or if you were Diddy, you had like a giant jetpack jet
Right.
underwater, and like depending on if you're underwater, stuff changed, and that was really cool.
Yeah, I loved both of those games. I think they're both great, and yeah, I Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze as well. It was one of the most fun games that I played on the Wii U. In my opinion, it was beautiful. It had great soundtrack, great gameplay. Everything was amazing. And granted, it is kind of frustrating how there's a lot of trial and error in the game, but I still think it's worth it in the end.
Yeah.
So, talking about Wii U games, though, we are all Wii U owners. Are you guys excited for The Legend of Zelda Wii U?
I'll let
Yes, very
Roberto
much
take this
so.
one.
I assume we all are, right? But do you guys believe that game is coming out this year, like they've announced this far?
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, because they kept Majora's Mask under wraps for 3 years, and look
Right.
how that turned out.
Right. So you believe that they might have been working on it for a long time, and it just took us a while to get to know it better.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
Well,
pretty sure they're holding back at what they've shown us so far.
yeah.
Probably.
Oh, I hope
They
so.
Nintendo, even if it isn't ready, Nintendo will postpone it. Nintendo is one of the very few companies that if they feel like the game is not ready, they will postpone it. Heck, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze was postponed,
Yeah, that's right.
and then they released it later, and it was a great game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I do have high
I
hopes for that game being great as well, regardless of it coming out on December or whatever, or next year or. Kleker,
Yeah.
you were gonna say something?
they'll probably meet the deadline because, like Roberto said, they kept Majora's Mask under wraps for like a while, and then they were just like, "Oh, hey, by the way, like 4 months from release, here's Majora's Mask."
Right.
Like,
I do hope they hit the mark because I would love to play that game later this year, near Christmas, the break and everything. That being said, there have been a lot of games being delayed recently. Uncharted 4, for instance, I think last week or a few weeks ago, has just been delayed from, I think it was supposed to come late 2015, and now it's going to come spring 2016. Granted, I think a lot of people already kind of saw that coming with Naughty Dog refreshing a lot of their staff. Actually laying off a few people. Some of the key people in there were leaving, and then other people taking over the project and everything. But then there were also like Evolve was supposed to come out last year. It came out February this year. Battlefield Hardline, Witcher 3. A lot of games have been being delayed recently. Batman Arkham Knight is an interesting example because it was originally announced for October last year, and now it's coming out on June 2nd this year. And I believe there are still a few games that have been announced that are probably going to be delayed, or a lot of people believe are going to be delayed. And Zelda Wii U is one of them, although, as Roberto said, they could have it ready already. They could have it close to being ready, and we just haven't seen much yet. Or Star Fox is one that I'm kind of concerned about because we haven't seen pretty much anything from that game. A lot of people
yeah,
yeah.
I really want to know about that game.
I hope we get to know more on E3. I think they'll have to show it at the E3 if it's really coming out this year. And
Hopefully.
Roberto is a big fan of the Kingdom Hearts series. I think Kingdom Hearts 3, they said that it's still coming this year, but a lot of people seem to believe that that's not a thing, or something like that. I believe that is one
I
people.
think
Go ahead.
I think it was mainly because they scrapped their entire engine and switched to Unreal.
Right. So yeah, there's a lot of rework going into that game as well. But what do you guys think? How do you guys feel about game delays in general? I was curious to hear your opinions on that.
I mean, from a consumer side point, sure, if you're impatient, it sucks.
Right.
But the reality is, if they really actually need the time, they need the time to make a better game. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, that's true.
I always respect it. If they know the game's not done and they take more time to finish it and make it a game that they are, one, proud of, and two, are like happy about, then take that time, finish the game. Don't be like Battlefield 3 and release a game just so you can get a whole bunch of profit because people
Right.
are like, "Oh, it's Battlefield, I have to buy it." Like, and that's part of the problem here. The main problem is people, like, just if it's a franchise, they're like, "Oh my god, I gotta buy this, I gotta buy this. It's Battlefield, I could play with my friends, I could do all this stuff." And like, the thing is, like, studios know that, and like they'll, like, publishers know that, and they'll just target audiences like that, and they'll still make tons of money off of it because they can, because people will just buy it even though it's a franchise, and that's partly a problem. So
Right. I think you hit a really interesting point in there. Is that a lot of games while there are a lot of games being delayed, there are a lot of games that are not delayed, but then they come out and a lot of people are disappointed with them because they don't quite work in a lot of cases, actually. In Battlefield 3, was it 3 or no, it was Battlefield 4.
was it Battlefield 4?
4 had some server issues.
Yeah, they had a few issues. Also, did any of you guys get the Master Chief Collection for Xbox
I did.
One?
Roberto did.
What were the problems with that, Roberto? Because I never quite got what was going on with that
Everything.
game. Everything.
So, a lot of it was pretty much server issues. It was almost impossible to find a matchmaking session. Parties didn't actually work. Like, you
Right.
could team up with your friends, but if you backed out for whatever reason, you lost everyone. So,
Right. Then, okay, so there are the cases where games get delayed, but then they end up releasing and are better, or when they don't get delayed and they probably should, and they release and they have all those kinds of problems and everything. But what did you say about, if a game gets delayed multiple times sometimes and it gets released and still disappoints or still has major problems? Because I think it has happened with the past. Has any of you guys played Watch Dogs?
no.
Okay, it seems like the kind of game that I kind of saw Roberto playing because he's kind of a big Assassin's Creed fan, I think.
I didn't play it. actually.
Okay.
I
But-
love Assassin's Creed. I'm a big Assassin's Creed fan, but I didn't know if I like Watch Dogs.
I don't care much for it. I played Assassin's Creed 4, which was really good. But back to delays, though. I was just going to say, Watch Dogs is an interesting example because when it was first shown, everybody was crazy about it. Like it had this absolutely gorgeous graphics and special effects and particle effects and everything that people were crazy about. And also the presentation of the game, the cutscenes, everything looked awesome. And then they kept delaying the game, like, I think 2 times and showing it without... Maybe it wasn't as much as delays as it was just like they shown it too early, probably because they thought it was going to come out earlier, and then they just kept showing the same thing over and over again until it came out, and ultimately I think a lot of people were kind of disappointed with the game. Not that it was bad, it was just not what they expected. It was a little worse than what was shown before, and also it might have been a little buggy as well. Like a lot of Ubisoft games these days, they release with a bunch of bugs from what I know, of course. And I just wonder if maybe the problem with delays isn't as much as the delays themselves, but could it be that the publishers are really estimating very incorrectly when the games are going to be done? And shouldn't maybe the problem be they start working towards like getting their estimations right, and maybe not promising a game or not showing a game before it's closer for to the release, Because even Kingdom Hearts 3, like they shown it last E3 and people got crazy about it, but God knows when that game is going to come out. Don't you guys think that showing a game too early may bring like problems to the publishers and developers later? Such as like people getting tired of like
Waiting
waiting and seeing and hearing about the game until like they kind of lose that hype, that initial hype.
That's a good point, and that actually I could use a game called Duke Nukem as an example, which was
Oh God, yes.
a game that was announced and then it was 15 years in the making, and then when it came out, the hype of it was pretty much dead because it got postponed so much and they revealed so much of the game, and then it fell flat on its face. There was nothing redeeming about that game, and it literally fell flat. And
Right.
I feel like it's just they postponed it way too much because the hype of people that would have been like, "Oh yeah, a new game, I want to buy it," died down because you can
Right.
only have hype for so long
Exactly.
before the game dies, and that was what happened to Duke Nukem.
Yeah. There are a few companies that get that really, really well though when they announce something and it comes out a few months later, or the hype starts building up close to the game release. I think that's part of the reason why GTA 5 was so successful, because I just have the impression that nobody was talking about GTA 5 until it was 6 months before it released or something. That's when the hype started coming out and they started showing a bunch of different things and the coolest things about the game and everything. So are you guys excited for Final Fantasy 15?
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah. Can you see because I think that's also a case where you guys know when that game's coming out, by the way? Did they announce it already?
Nope.
Yeah.
I just know they released a demo if you got Final Fantasy Type 0.
Oh, are you getting that?
I don't know yet.
Right. That's the remake of one of the...
PSP games.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it for...
Xbox One and PS4.
Okay, so not on the Vita.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
that's another interesting game that I feel like they've been talking about it forever, but it just kind of in the background, where they're here's a little thing, it exists or whatever, just talking a little bit while they're working on other projects, and now they're suddenly showing a lot of things for it. And I'm actually not, I haven't followed the Final Fantasy franchise a lot, but it does look like a good game from what I've seen so far. It looks very different. I'm also kind of excited for it. I'm probably going to end up playing this one. But anyway, talking about games that are very far from being released or not, or could possibly get delayed or whatever. I'm just trying to make a segue here and totally failing at it because this next segment has kind of nothing to do with what we're talking about. But did you guys see that Harmonix has announced that they're working on Rock Band 4?
Yes.
I've heard that.
Are you guys Rock Band fans? Did you play the games?
I do.
Yes.
Okay. How much did you like them, Roberto?
I enjoy them a lot, actually. I actually put a lot of money into those games. So I'm hoping that Harmonix will give me a way to transfer my songs from 360 up to my Xbox One.
That's a good point that you just made, because they actually have announced that you'll be able to transfer not all of them, but most of the DLC songs from the previous games. Even from different consoles, because obviously the PS4 and the Xbox One weren't there back then. But I think the original songs that come from the game, those are gone. And then there are a few games where you can't really transfer anything, like the Beatles Rock Band, for example, mostly because of just licensing issues and everything. But it seems like most of the DLC songs that you purchase, you'll be able to transfer. I think they said something like that.
Well,
Go ahead.
that makes sense because if you bought the DLC on their network on PSN or Xbox Live, they should still have memory of that purchase, so you would just re-download it.
Right. Well, actually, I think the reason why they can do it is because it is registered on an actual Harmonix account or something like that, and it's not just your your Xbox Live or PSN or everything. So, because then if it was registered on PSN and you decided to buy an Xbox One instead of a PS4, that would be a problem. So I'm still not sure how they deal with that, but it seems like the Rock Band database itself kind of knows everything, so they'll be able to handle it all. The instruments is also something interesting because by default you kind of have to buy all the instruments again, since the way that the devices work wirelessly with the PS4 and the Xbox One uses a different kind of technology than the previous one. But they are trying to come up with with some kind of adapter or something that can make the old ones work. Would you guys be willing, in case you have them, to rebuy all the plastic instruments again?
My guitar's broken, so yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on a similar boat. I have 2 guitars, but I don't think any of them work fine. And granted, I'm not actually Rock Band guitars, Guitar Hero guitars. I think they're crossover, though. I'm not sure.
They were.
Yeah. I've always been a Guitar Hero guy. I never owned a Rock Band game. I own like 5 Guitar Hero games. So, but if Rock Band 4 comes out and there's no Guitar Hero on the way, I think I'm willing to go the Rock Band way this time. Especially because it seems like most people preferred Rock Band. I even feel like it seems like most people thought Rock Band had like just better songs or something. But anyway, I did enjoy the Guitar Hero games that I've played a lot. Let me see. They did talk about how they aim to have Rock Band 4 as a platform and not as just a game that they annually release like it previously was. So they want to release Rock Band 4 and then keep releasing patches and DLC to it that you can keep building up on the same game for years rather than having to buy a new one every other year or something. Which I think is really cool. I think that's how those games should have been to begin with. They got a little crazy with the annualization. That's ultimately what kind of made it, what made people get tired of them and everything. I did have a lot of fun playing Guitar Hero though, and I feel like getting everyone together, like a bunch of friends together in one room, each one playing an instrument, either in Rock Band or Guitar Hero or whatever, was a kind of fun that was very unique and different than anything video games had done up until that point. And we did get tired of it and grown out of it at one point. But it's been a few years now. And I feel like it's kind of the right time to go back to that kind of experience again. And also introduce that kind of experience to a new generation that might not have done it before. So I did just want to bring this up and talk a little bit about it with you guys because I am quite excited about this, I'll be honest. I'm quite excited to see what a next-gen Rock Band will be like and to have that kind of fun again. This is the kind of thing that if I own the console that they release for it, which I probably won't either a PS4 or an Xbox One at that point, I'm definitely buying day one. The full package, everything. Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to Rock Band. It will be interesting to see what songs they have. I'll be interested to see if they still have classic songs or if they're actually going to start adding more like new songs or stuff like that. I don't know. My one fear is if they'll add like popular like dubstep songs, and I fear that. I fear that the most. But
not a dubstep fan? I'm not either.
Very, very selective. I'm very selective with my dubstep. There's 2 requirements. 1, there is a thing as too much wubs. And if it's just all wubs, it's not good. And 2, if you're doing a remix, you have to have somewhat of the original, like, actual melody of the song. And the last thing is if there's singing in it, I tend to like it more. Especially female singers. Those are the requirements for dubstep.
Okay.
So, but anyways, so
I do like singers in my music as well. I'm not a big fan of the whole electronic thing with just the beats and everything. Yeah.
Are you a fan of Vocaloid?
Oh, the Japanese one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's kind of cool. I'm not a fan, but I have listened to some of their songs. It's cool. So, have you guys actually seen this one called? I think it's called Baby Metal. It's from Japan as well. That one is pretty hilarious. It's just like these 3 little girls, and they do like kind of heavy metal. It's not like super heavy, but it's kind of cool. Alright, so talking about heavy metal, Nintendo has just announced that it's entering into a partnership with DNA, which is a Japanese company that usually works with smartphone games and smartphone platforms and everything. And they have just partnered together to bring Nintendo IP to smartphones. Just giving a little more details into this agreement. It's the 2 companies will be in joint development and operation of gaming applications for smart devices using Nintendo's characters themselves. So it's not like it's not like they'll necessarily create new things. Of course they could, but they're being very clear about we're going to bring Nintendo franchises to this. Also, they would develop together a new membership program that will work on PCs, smartphones, tablets, video game systems, everything. Probably what is going to end up replacing Club Nintendo. And also, Nintendo is acquiring 10% of DNA's shares in exchange of DNA's acquiring about 1.25% of Nintendo. It's kind of an interesting thing. It kind of, to me, shows that they're serious about it because and they're trading 1.25% of their company for 10% of this other company. Oh, what is 1.25%? I think it's a lot, especially for a big company like Nintendo. So, coming from that, what do you guys think about Nintendo's move into working with smartphone games, making smartphone games?
This could be very bad. I'm not gonna lie.
It could be.
Let me say one thing. Freemium.
Oh, all right. I was expecting you guys to be a little more optimistic about it.
Well, I mean, they released Pokemon Shuffle recently, and that's a freemium game on their 3DS.
Right.
So if they have smartphones where people can pump out games a lot faster, what's stopping them from doing those kind of things?
Right. I do feel like they want to experiment with a few different models, though. Like what they did with Rusty's Real Deal Baseball and Steel Diver Subwars or something like that, where they were kind of just doing this. Like in Rusty, you could waggle with the seller to change the price of the DLC, which is kind of weird. And then on Steel Divers, I think you just bought almost like a demo. No, you got almost like a demo for free, and if you wanted everything on the game, you just paid like one fee or something like that. Kleker?
So my opinions on it are Nintendo owns the handheld gaming market.
Right.
They're going to go into cell phone business now, and then they're probably going to own that. And
We'll see.
It'll be good competition for other people, but it's like I'm happy and sad at the same time. I'm sad because there's so much I feel like that could go wrong, but I'm happy because if it goes right, then Nintendo, who already owns butt tons of money, will just own a crap ton more.
Right.
And it'll be, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. I'm not sure where it's gonna go, but we will see. Only time can tell.
The reason why I'm a little more optimistic about this, I feel, is hoping that Nintendo doesn't really take resources out of other projects for their consoles to completely focus on this. I just hope it's kind of a side thing while they keep their other business, their other game development going for Wii U and 3DS or whatever their next console is going to be. I feel like Nintendo is really good at taking advantage of hardware and making games that really fit their hardware they're in. So as long as they don't as long as they don't do shitty ports, like apparently Square Enix has done with the Final Fantasy games, I think they could actually make good iOS games and Android games and everything if they dedicate themselves to building a game from the ground up for that device, which seems to be what they want to do.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So, granted,
if
we notice a big drop in 3DS releases in spite of the smartphone releases, that would make me a little mad. But if that doesn't happen, if they're able to keep both good, then I'll be fine with it. And there are a lot of good, there are actually a lot of good smartphone games out there, and a lot of other companies are doing them as well. Nintendo's not the first one to do something like that. I believe it's the first one out of the three big, but no, actually Microsoft has done smartphone things as well. But Ubisoft has been releasing iPhone games for a while now, I think, and Square Enix has supported the Final Fantasy games and probably a few other things. So there has been precedent for something like that happening. And also the investors have been insisting for Nintendo to do it for a long time. So, I'm curious to hear from you guys, what games or franchises do you think Nintendo could do a good job bringing to cell phones? But because I kind of put you on the spot, not preparing you much for this, I'm going to go ahead first and then kind of give you guys some time to think if you're able to come up with anything. If not, that's fine. But some that I was thinking about, I think Elite Beat Agents, which is a DS game. I don't know if any of you guys play that, but it's
I know what it is.
yeah, it's a rhythm game of just like you're essentially just popping like circles and dragging your stylus around the touchscreen as the music plays. And there's this whole like over the top presentation with like special agents and that kind of stuff. And it seems like in Japan it was actually very different as well. It was one of those games that got completely changed when it came to America. But I feel like that would be perfect for an iPhone interface because it would essentially just be tapping with your finger in the rhythm of the song and everything. So I feel like something like that could be very fun. Which also reminds me of Harmonite, which was developed by Game Freak, the same guys who make Pokemon for the 3DS eShop, where it's almost like this rhythm-based platformer where you essentially just have to jump and hit on the right tempo to get through the level. I only played a demo of that, but that was actually pretty fun. Something like Mario Party, I could see working as well, and I know, probably sick of Mario Party, everybody's sick of Mario Party, but just like local multiplayer on the iPhone, everybody's together, each with their phones, and then like they could just work very different, unique mini games for iPhone. Because I feel like mini games are the things that would be easier to put in a machine like that, while making a full-fledged good game would probably be harder. So I think something like Mario Party could work. And then I actually also kind of thought about maybe it doesn't have to be a full game, more than it's just kind of an accessory to a game. So Roberto, you probably remember the Pokewalker, right?
Right.
So what if the Pokewalker was, for the listeners that don't know, this little thing that came with Pokemon Gold and Silver, where you would essentially keep it on your pocket as you walk around, and you could keep a Pokemon in there, and the Pokemon will like level up as you walk, depending on your steps and that kind of stuff. And I think there are a lot of extra things to it, but I don't remember the details of everything you could do with it. So maybe you could have a Pokewalker app on your phone, and you just sync that with your Pokemon in your Pokemon game on the 3DS, and you can use that or something. So I don't know. Those are some of the ideas that I was thinking about. Do you guys have something?
I think like NES Remix might work out well.
Oh, yes.
They can come up with new specific things for touchscreen and whatnot.
Right, yeah. Something like that could be fun.
Or WireWare.
Yeah.
Oh, WireWare.
Oh, WarioWare, that would be... I can see that. That would be an interesting game on a handheld.
Yeah, on WarioWare, they could even like try to come up with like some good like do yourself maps kind of thing. Like where you can kind of just be dragging things around and creating your mini games and sharing with your friends and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I feel like they can make something very fun with that. Kleker, do you have anything?
I don't know. Most of the games I could see on like SNES. I mean, some of the games back in the day were very like simple. They had simple controls, but I can't think of any. Oh, wait, I got it. Either Katamari could be interesting.
That's not Nintendo.
Or that isn't Nintendo. You're right. That's Sony.
What is Katamari, by the way? I don't quite...
It's that game where you roll up stuff with a giant ball.
Oh.
And your goal is to make it as a certain size by the time limit.
Oh, okay.
It's a very simple game, but I'm surprised it was on console. But I could easily see that one being a handheld, but that's not Nintendo. So if I had to do a Nintendo game, I could see Bit Trip, or also,
I also don't think Bit Trip is Nintendo, by the way. But
no, it's not first party either.
It's not. Oh,
but
no.
That being said, Bit Trip, like, I'm kind of glad you said that because I'm almost forgotten about that game. That was a very fun game, I think.
I've only played Bit Trip on a Nintendo console, so I guess it was. I just assumed.
That's fine.
What's their rhythm game they always come out with?
Rhythm Heaven.
I forget. Rhythm Heaven, is that? No, that's not Nintendo either.
That's what it is. I don't know if it's like first party, but
either way,
it can come out on the Wii.
Rhythm Heaven is Nintendo exclusive.
Is it? All right, then I can see that one being on handheld. Because you could select different mini games, and then they're very simple. You just have to go with the beat.
Right, so. That works. I was now thinking about maybe Punch Out, because...
That could work.
Yeah, it's essentially just two buttons, right? Just punching right or left.
And dodging.
Yeah, and dodging. So I think you could
easily... So you could swipe to dodge.
Yeah, swipe down to dodge. That would be good. Just using your thumbs to punch like either right or left. I would play a game like that. Yes. I am partially optimistic. I'm not as much optimistic as more like very intrigued and curious to see what they're gonna do, because I bet with you all the things that we just talked about, they're not gonna do that.
Probably not.
Because those are the kind of the more logical, somewhat obvious ones where we're like, yeah, that'll fit. I think they're gonna come up with something that's like, what? Why the fuck are you doing that? kind of thing. But hopefully, it's still gonna be really good. Okay, so on the same event that Nintendo talked about how they're gonna start bringing their IP to iPhone, to smartphone devices and everything. They also kind of very slightly unveiled the codename to their next console, which is so far called Nintendo NX. And they really didn't show anything. They didn't even talk much about it. They were just like, by the way, Nintendo NX, this is going to be a thing one day. And then a lot of people already started kind of coming up with their theories about it and like, oh, I think it has to be that way. I think it has to be that way or whatever. Or, oh, they're killing the Wii U, or maybe they're killing the 3DS, or both, or what is that about? I just want to point out that I don't think Wii U owners or 3DS owners have anything to worry about for now, because I feel like this is something that's still very, very far away, to the point where I feel like they just said it exists so that people know that they're still in the console market and that they're still working on stuff and everything, so that they kind of stop with the... So that people kind of stop with the whole pessimistic approach. Oh, Nintendo is going to go bankrupt and everything, which makes no sense, by the way, because they're rich. But I think they just talked about it a little bit, and then they're going to talk a little bit more about it only next year, on 2016. And I can see this coming out only in about, like, holiday 2017 or something like that. I don't think it's anywhere close. But what do you guys think about, this announcement? When do you think it's going to come, and what would you expect or want from the next Nintendo console?
I think it's actually going to be just something to add to the Wii U.
Oh,
I don't know
really?
if it's actually going to be something new.
Okay. So you see, like, maybe a new version or some kind of...
No. Maybe in more like a new peripheral, but not something cheap, something that actually will make a big difference.
Nintendo virtual reality headset?
Maybe.
Who knows?
I mean, everyone's stepping up to that plate.
Right.
So I wouldn't put it past Nintendo to do that either.
Right. At one point, I think Shigeru Miyamoto said that, like, he didn't like virtual reality because virtual reality was someone being stuck in their own little world, while Nintendo is more about having fun with your friends and that kind of thing, and friends and family. So, but at the same time, Nintendo has done a lot of, oh no, we don't like that, and then doing that, I think. So,
right.
I mean,
they could always...
Go ahead.
They could always innovate it to a point where, like you said, it isn't more about yourself, it's more about with other people.
Right. Yeah, so it's more about, like, kind of everyone putting a headset, playing something together, or maybe some kind of interaction. Where, kind of like the Wii U thing, where the person who has the Wii U gamepad usually plays a different role in the game than the other players who are looking at the TV. Maybe they could do a similar thing where the guy who has the headset is in the same game than the people who are on the couch playing on the TV, but, he sees something completely different or whatever.
Right. Who says that doesn't have to be a headset? It could be something in the vein of how the gamepad works. It could be something entirely new.
Right. It could be something that will blow your mind.
It could. So there's two things that can happen. Also, Nintendo never released DLC, and they always hated releasing DLC, yet they released DLC for Mario Kart. Yet they're going to release DLC for Super Smash Bros.
Yeah.
So Nintendo's slowly changing and evolving. So eventually, maybe they'll look at it and be like, okay, you know what? Maybe it's time to go into virtual reality. But my next step I could see is, since they created these nifty little amiibos, what if, like, the nifty amiibos, like, came to life and, like, were projected onto, like, a platform, aka the Wii U platform, and you could, like, see them fight almost on, like, a little screen that pops up, and it's almost like a... It's like pseudo virtual reality. Like, I think, see almost like...
It's AR.
Yeah, augmented reality. Kind of like the 3DS thing. Have you ever done the 3DS thing, Kleker, where you, like, put the card in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like augmented reality, except actual games. Like maybe NX is just like you get like a platform and you just have like the platform come up and like it's literally augmented reality.
Right.
They got like they figured augmented reality using a 3D like camera, but now like I could see them trying to use it into a like an actual console, a main console. So that might be the next step. I don't know.
That could be kind
But
of fun, where like the console is actually almost like a board, for like an
yeah.
analog game board, and then each person has like their set of glasses, where it's almost like the Microsoft HoloLens thing, and then you kind of play the games on the board with your hands and everything or something like that. I think that's getting very futuristic, but it is kind of fun to think about. I do. What I feel is a little more grounded in reality, I'm not particularly sure they would go that direction, but some people tend to believe that what the NX is going to be is the Nintendo crossover, where it's a console that works both as a handheld and as a home console. Which is, I think, something people have wanted from Nintendo. At least some people have wanted from Nintendo for a while. So, like, imagine if you have some kind of very advanced 3DS in your pocket, where it has great graphics and everything. And then when you get home, you can just connect it to a home device and you play essentially the same games, either on your TV or when you're away. It feels like some people want and believe Nintendo's going to go into that direction. Would you guys want something like that? Would you guys expect something like that? Or is it totally out of the question for you guys?
I mean, Sony already failed at that, so
Right.
Sony
I
did
don't know if they're
kind of
going to
drop the
attempt
ball.
it.
Yeah, I don't really see that necessarily working either. Because I almost feel like I don't know, man. I kind of like the having both the handheld and the console, and kind of each has their own time of usage in the day, and their own functionality and everything. And I'm not sure if I want everything to just be one thing.
I think Nintendo took a step in that direction, but I don't know if it'll ever become full-fledged because there's a clear defining line between handheld and console games, and each game is kind of made I want to say designed differently almost because I feel like some handheld games are like meant to be played like okay, I can play this for a quick second, stop. I can play this for a quick second, stop, or
Right.
stuff like that. And then console games are like you sit down and you play.
Right.
Like you allocate X amount of hours and you play. So I feel like there's always a clear defining line between those two. And not to say 3DS games and handheld games could be a whole like sit down game I'm playing this, but the design of those games tend to be more play for a little bit, stop, play for a little bit, stop.
Right.
And combining a console and a handheld into one would be it's not impossible, but it's you then have
Right. It just
like
makes
all
designing
these
those games more difficult, is what I mean, right?
yeah, pretty much.
And I did think you brought a really good point where, like, Nintendo are one of the best companies in game design, and they do pay a lot of attention into that when they're designing their games. They feel like which platform it's going to work on, and from how long will the player be on this game before he moves on to what are the controls that he's going to have and everything. So creating something like that would be creating for themselves a big design challenge moving forward. But that being said, they do like design challenges with the consoles that they make usually, and sometimes they can achieve and succeed with their challenges. For example, with the Wii, I feel like they succeeded. Took them a while, but actually no, Wii Sports already succeeded in the Wii, so that was already good. But it was only with Wii Motion Plus and Skyward Sword where we got the full potential of the machine that we were initially presented. And then with DS as well, it took them a while, but they eventually got that as well. Now, I feel like with the Wii U is where they've kind of been struggling where, although I really like my Wii U and I like the games, I still feel like very few games make good use of the gamepad. Donkey Kong, for example, completely turns off the gamepad screen,
Mm.
And
But you can also switch it to the gamepad screen if
yeah,
you
you
want.
could switch it to the gamepad screen, but like there's no creative usage of the gamepad to help in the game. And granted, I think I probably prefer them do that than just shove something in that's just stupid. But a lot of people complain that they still haven't really gotten the gamepad is really supposed to add to the games. Because Mario Kart doesn't really have anything major in the gamepad either. It's kind of like the horn.
It's just it has a horn, and then you can swap your mini map onto it. But that's whatever. The main game I've seen it used the best is Pikmin. Pikmin has used the gamepad, I think, in the best way possible, because you have an overview of what you still need to collect.
Right.
You can look at where your Pikmin are going and see which Pikmin are where, and you can micromanage and then still keep track of your local, like where all of them are or where whoever you're playing is, and manage that. And you kind of use both screens, one to see how well you're doing and what is still there and where your Pikmin are and what I need to do, and then the actual main screen to run around and do stuff. So Pikmin's the one I've seen it use it the best. I will agree that they should use it more.
Right.
Nintendo game I'm looking forward to that might use it more is Star Fox.
Oh. I was actually thinking Zelda. Because it's probably going to be a map for the most part. But I mean, that map always there might be very useful. And at the same time, maybe they're going to bring back the functionality from Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass where you could write on the map and that kind of stuff. Which was kind of helpful. Also, maybe for the special items that you get in the game, maybe there's some that use the gamepad in creative ways. I do think Nintendo Land is one that really got it right. Although, not a lot of people like that game. I feel like... Okay, I'll be honest. I feel like everybody who has played Nintendo Land for a while and tried like different mini games and stuff appreciates it. But when it was first released and when it came out, a lot of people didn't care for it, and it didn't have the same effect as Wii Sports. But I do feel like that's a game that uses the gamepad in a lot of smart ways as well.
I mean, you don't always have to use it in an innovative way. If you really can't think of something, the best choice to do is make it a utility.
Right. Exactly. That's fine.
So, taking things off the main screen, like certain items in the heads-up display, would be very useful, especially in JRPGs, you know?
Right.
Where a lot of things are very visual and you're kind of enjoying that and you don't want the HUD to get in the way.
Right. Just keeping
micromanaging is another thing, like Kleker said.
Yeah. It just helps keep the screen cleaner, possibly.
Yeah.
Also looking at the map and changing items without having to pause the game.
Yeah.
So
that is certainly a way that it could go.
Yeah. Anyway, just to kind of finish this off, I want to point out that the stock for Nintendo has gone up after their announcement. So it seems like I think it's been higher. Like, it's been the highest point for the company in the past 4 years or something like that. Kind of since the Wii was fading out, their stocks went low, and they stayed low for the longest time. Now they're kind of high again. So it seems like most investors are excited about this, which makes sense. I mean, they've been asking for it for a long time, and for the longest time, Iwata said that they would never do it, and now they're kind of doing it, although I'm sure they're doing it some kind of different and probably an unexpected way. But
it's scary to think that Nintendo stocks are up because the company already has, like, I read an article that said Nintendo's the one company that could literally just stop making stuff for 10 years and still not go bankrupt.
Yeah.
They have a ton of money, and if their stocks are up, that means they're just going to get more money.
Yeah, they're fine. I did look, like, I think there was one time where a lot of people were talking about how, like, Nintendo was going to get out of the console business and how they were fucked and they were going to go bankrupt and all that. And I actually went to look at some of the numbers and I pulled like their financial reports for the past years. And you know that they had losses for I think 3 years in a row. But then I looked at the 1 year before they had those losses, right? Which was kind of the last year the Wii was successful. It was probably 2011, I think, or so. You know, middle 2011 to middle 2012 or something like that. And the profit they had on that Wii year was ridiculously higher than all the losses summed up together. So, like, in those 3 years of losses, they actually haven't lost the money they made on 1 year of the Wii. So, they're definitely fine. I don't think there's anything Nintendo fans have to worry about, except for the fact that, you know, as we all know, you're not going to get you're not going to get pretty much any third-party software on the Wii anymore, on the Wii U anymore, at least the kind of the good Western ones. But you still got your awesome Nintendo games and a few surprise JRPGs coming from Japan here and there. So
Yeah, no matter what, Nintendo will always iron out their gameplay and their design and will always release it. It's why I'm so excited for Splatoon.
right.
So excited for Splatoon. It's gonna be so good. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into that.
It's good that Nintendo is the one that tries to do stuff different though, while a lot of other companies kind of seem to be heading towards always the same way and kind of all the games they do should be different, start looking the same, don't you? And I believe Kleker has something to say on that. So why don't you go
I
ahead and
have
take it from here, Kleker?
all to say about that. So you bring up a great point, Dan.
Which was your
So,
point, by the way, just to make sure.
most companies nowadays are following into a same format system. What I mean by this is a lot of companies. So we have Call of Duty, right? When Call of Duty first came out, it was like, okay, here's this kind of combat. It's very like old style combat because they went to like World War II and stuff like that. Then you got Halo. And there was a very defined line between them. Each one had their own mechanics. They worked differently and everything like that. As the years have gone on, they're slowly merging into the same game. And this is happening with a lot of first-person shooters. A lot of first-person shooters are just Call of Duty just remade, and it's just a different environment and stuff like that. And like it's slowly just becoming the same game. Like there's nothing new to it. Like the only thing I feel that's ever new in any Call of Duty game ever is just the story and what happens in the story. That's all there is. There's nothing new or fresh to the online play, or there's nothing new and fresh to this or that. It's all just the same. They may add new weapons here and there, but it's just becoming less and less like fun. It's exactly with another example is the Assassin's Creed series. Like the Assassin's Creed series, when it first came out, the first 2 or 3 or 4 were spectacular. Everyone loved them. But now they're kind of falling into this like rhythm, and they need to spice it up. They need to try something new, and Nintendo can be blamed for this too, because they have the Mario series where they constantly release Mario series over and over and over again. But what Nintendo does is they tend to take a mechanic and expand upon that mechanic. So in most 3D Mario games, like in the first Mario 64, you had, I go into paintings, I do like this thing. Then they released Mario Sunshine. You didn't go, there were still technically painting in it, but you had the flood. And the flood was an awesome mechanic, and they tried to use that. They attempted to say, here's a new thing, we're going to expand upon this thing, and use it in every way we can. The thing that Call of Duty doesn't do is they may create a new weapon, but they don't expand upon that weapon. They just say, here's a new weapon, use it. Like there's nothing new to expand upon. There's no like solid game mechanic to expand upon. Nintendo, I feel like, focuses on the mechanic and then expands on it. In Mario Galaxy, well, we don't have gravity anymore. What can we do with that? Okay, well, here's X, 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 and X we can do. And I like most 2D Mario games are kind of just reprints, and that's why I say Nintendo is also flawed in this.
Right.
But I feel like other consoles could easily do that. Like they like have a unique idea, expand upon it, do this, and I fear for the future for consoles, because if people start catching on and say, oh, this is just a reprint of this last game, oh, this is just a reprint of the last game, oh, this is just a reprint of the last game, eventually the sales are going to go down, or they should, hopefully, unless people are really, really, really don't notice anything. But so I hope that eventually they say, okay, we need to do something new and something fresh for this game because clearly we've been releasing the same game for like 10 years now and obviously our sales are down, so let's think of something new. I hope that day comes. If it doesn't, I fear that Xbox and 360, this probably will never happen, but I feel there might be a
you mean
crash.
Xbox and PlayStation?
Oh yeah, Xbox and PlayStation,
okay.
Sony. But I fear like they will suffer the most, and I feel there might be a giant crash in the gaming market if it doesn't change. At least that's what I
wouldn't say
fear,
that.
or for consoles at least.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why it
They
probably
don't
won't
live
happen.
off Call of Duty. They have other games.
True.
That's true.
Kleker making some bold predictions in here, and Roberto cutting his bullshit.
I'm just saying, but like, how much profit comes from Call of Duty and everything like that?
They don't get any of that money. The publisher does. No.
Oh. In that case,
well,
hopefully
giving a good point
publishers
to
realize.
Kleker, though, maybe what we should say, though, is that, like, because what happened to Atari in the past was essentially, like, kind of one, or not one, but there were a lot of games, and the last kind of drop in the bucket was E.T. that screwed them over. And since Atari was so big, when they fell off, a lot of investors lost confidence in the market and took out like their money from the other companies as well and that kind of stuff because they were afraid of like everybody getting pulled out. And because they were afraid, everybody did go that direction. And there are a lot of economic reasons for that, which I'm not completely aware of. But just pointing out, like Activision is one of the major publishers today, and Microsoft with the Halo franchise, which he also talked about, and Ubisoft. And if one day happens where people just get tired of those games and those companies start falling off, that could actually influentiate the whole gaming market. Not that I believe that, because I do think it may be a little bit of an exaggeration, but just kind of giving a point to Kleker in the sense that, yeah, if they keep going that way, there are going to be repercussion, and repercussion can be bad. That being said, Roberto is a Call of Duty specialist, so I wonder if he has anything to say in defense of the franchise or anything.
Not really.
Oh, okay. So you pretty much agree.
Points.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's one thing that Call of Duty did right when it came later on. They made this thing called Nazi Zombies. Everyone loved it. It was new. It was fresh. People kept playing it, and like people kind of almost bought Call of Duty mainly for zombies instead of the actual game because they wanted to play this thing because it was so much fun, and they actually added new stuff to it. Like, I feel like almost like the game was like put to the side, and then it was all like Nazi zombies, and like it was a fun thing, and they kept on expanding upon it, and it was new and it was fresh, and now they've ended Nazi zombies. So who knows? They might create another like sub game within the game that's really good. I don't know. If they do, awesome. More props to them. But when they introduced Nazi zombies, everyone was super like they played that. I swear they played that game mode more than the actual game.
Yeah. I don't play Call of Duty, but I have played some zombie modes with friends and family and stuff, and those are a lot of fun, usually.
Yeah. So that's I will give that to Call of Duty.
I want to give something to Assassin's Creed as well, because I'm really not an Assassin's Creed fan. I've played like maybe 2.5 of their games or something like that when they have been like 8 already or something. But I will say that I do feel Assassin's Creed falls short from time to time, but they also spice things up from time to time. And I do think Assassin's Creed 4 was one of the ones where they did spice things up in very interesting ways, coming from kind of an amateur perspective, because I had played Assassin's Creed Revelations before. I was like, oh, okay, this is alright, just going around killing people. There's the whole, like, the setting is awesome, the graphics are awesome and everything, but just not so much my kind of game. It feels kind of repetitive. But somehow in Assassin's Creed 4, while it was kind of repetitive, I don't know, like, driving that, or maybe not driving, sailing that ship was so... I had so much fun with that, you know, and just going to the open ocean and fighting all those different ships and forts and stuff. I had a lot of fun with that. And then apparently Unity was the one that went back to being kind of boring or kind of not having a lot of uniqueness to it. But I wouldn't be surprised if Ubisoft had something else under their sleeve to make the franchise fresh again eventually, right? Or in this year maybe, or next year or something. I will say as well that the same thing that you notice with the games, I think it's kind of happening with consoles as well, or at least with the PS4 and the Xbox One, where initially they were completely different machines with different ideas and honestly almost different target audiences, and now they're kind of become the same thing as well, with just like 2 or 3 different games for each one. So I was actually one of the very few people, I think, that was kind of interested to see where I was kind of intrigued to see where the Xbox One would go. The Xbox One would go with their initial premise and everything. And granted, I'm not saying that I'm in favor of everything. I was just like, oh, okay, they have like a completely different view of this, and they want to do like this whole TV interaction thing, and they want to stick with Kinect, which is probably gonna open a lot of doors for developers to develop with it and everything. And the always online thing is something that the console actually could, like some games could actually benefit from and all that. And granted, I'm not saying, oh, they should have done it. I'm just saying if they did, I think that would make for possibly a more interesting gaming environment than what we have today, where they're essentially the same. And people are just arguing over resolutions and 60 FPS.
Pretty much.
Yeah. People like their 60 FPS.
But yeah, I see where you're coming from, Kleker. And since you brought up Nintendo, I agree. The new Super Mario Bros. Series, when they made that for the first time, I was like, hell yeah, they're bringing classic Mario again, because we only had 3D Marios for a while. But then they done 4 of them in a very short period of time. And now there's Mario Maker coming out, which I know it's awesome. You're going to be able to make your own Mario levels, but we just played 4 2D Mario games, and then it's again another 2D Mario game in a way. So I almost feel like they should have just done the first New Super Mario Brothers and then Mario Maker. I think that though.
And then another 3D Mario. I've wanted a 3D Mario for a while now, and it's been a long time since they technically, I guess they said like Super Mario 3D World was a 3D Mario, but
it was a 3D Mario. I get your point, though, that it wasn't the same kind of experience as Super Mario Galaxy or 64,
Yeah, it was like a 3D world almost set out on like a 2D environment. It wasn't like, I don't know. It did not have the same feel as Galaxy or Sunshine or anything like that. It had a completely different feel to it. However, that game was good.
Right.
But
well, it built up on Super Mario 3D Land, whose initial idea was mixing, kind of getting the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
Having the world map and going stage by stage, like the classic Mario, but then having kind of 3D isometric environments. And Super Mario 3D World kind of did the same thing. And I feel like that kind of Mario game has its space, and I like it, and I fucking loved Super Mario 3D World. I really like that game, and that's one of the games where I didn't only beat, I got everything in it. But yeah, I also miss that big Mario game where you're kind of going through this main hub world, and then on this hub world you have like lots of choices for different stages and places to go and that kind of stuff. Kind of how Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Galaxy felt. And I agree, they felt like very different than 3D Land and 3D World, which also feel very different than the new Super Mario Brothers games, which I'm really tired of, by the way.
Like I said, that's the one thing to Nintendo. They've released Super Mario so many times.
Right.
And I think that's why people like 3D Mario's better than 2D Mario's, just because they with 3D Mario's, they always do something interesting. They always expand upon a really interesting mechanic, and that's cool. That's good design. And maybe they explored all of what 2D Mario's can do. Maybe they've hit their wall of, okay, we can't do anything more interesting with 2D Mario games. And if that's the case, then give it a break for a while.
Yeah,
it's like you said.
I feel like they just need to take like a 5-year break, at least from 2D Mario games.
Yeah, like you said, you were excited about the new 2D Mario game because it'd been a while. You were like, oh yeah, they're bringing back a classic, and let that happen. Give it time to rest.
Yeah.
And eventually, hopefully, people will be like, yeah, they're bringing this back. Like, they should do that with Call of Duty. Give Call of Duty a rest. Then release it, like, in 5 or 10 years. And I guarantee you people will be like, yeah, Call of Duty again. People will be super hyped for it, probably.
I'm sure Roberto
They
doesn't
kind
want
of
that.
already are.
Okay.
Yeah.
They kind of already are with yearly intervals.
Yeah, I know. But the 5-year would make it even better, Roberto. Think about it. Think about it.
I'm not denying that.
Something
But-
interesting about like the Call of Duty thing that you were talking about earlier, Kleker, is even kind of the setting and the theme of the game is something that I find it interesting to look at, because for the longest time, I feel like Call of Duty was a very historic-based game, right? And not that it was super historic accurate or anything, but each game kind of told a different story of the war, of different wars or different sides of the same war or something like that. Until Modern Warfare, where they're like, no, this is what the Third World War would be like, right? I believe so. And after that, all the games have been futuristic.
Yeah.
No?
Because Call of Duty 4 was Advanced Warfare. Then they did Call of Duty World at War, which was back to Call of Duty, which was back to World War II. And then Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3 were all pretty much modern. And then Black Ops was like 70s era. And now they're just starting to do futuristic with Ghosts and Advanced Warfare.
Oh, okay. I had the impression they were going futuristic for a while already.
No.
But anyway, I just feel like if going back to it, it's a hard thing, because I also don't know like which historic moment could they develop that hasn't been developed yet. Because that's what I feel like would probably get me interested in a shooter again. And I'm not big on history like Roberto is. But if they were like, oh, this is a war that actually happened that has not been really talked about much in video games and stuff, and we're bringing this like this whole different setting, maybe a different country than what we're used to seeing and everything to this game, I feel like that could make it fresh again. While I'm just not a big fan of the futuristic like bombs and shots everywhere, super fast kind of thing, which seems to be happening with shooters for a while now. I'm not only Call of Duty.
Well, it's not just that. It's kind of technology, like actual technology, not console technology, like guns and stuff. I mean, if you're playing like the Civil War, are you really going to sit there for 20 minutes reloading your gun?
I don't know.
Those are the kind of limitations that, they have to deal with.
Right.
And it's very easy to just go modern or go future, because at that point, things have already been pretty much flushed out.
Good point. Anyway.
Yep.
You guys have anything to add into this topic other than we'd like our games to get more variety again and less yearly, or even if they keep making them yearly, just make them a little more fresh every time?
Like I said, if you want to make them yearly, make them a little bit more fresh. Those are the two options they can do. They can either say, okay, give it a break, and then release it how it was almost like how it was in the past, and then just kind of update it a little bit. Or you can release a game every year, but make it fresh. Do some ideas with it. But maybe the thing is they need more than a year to make fresh ideas. Because Nintendo, usually they do fresh ideas for Zelda, and how often do Zelda games come out?
Well, the main ones come out every 5 or 6 years or so.
So, then maybe you need to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to give Call of Duty a break, come out with fresh ideas, release it 5 years after. People will be super hype about it, will be super excited about the new mechanics they see.
And granted, looking at this from a business perspective, they do have to make money every year, but Call of Duty currently has, I think 3 major studios working on the games that, every time a new game comes out, it's one of those different 3 studios. So maybe they could keep one of them making, this huge, awesome, different thing, and still have annualized for the other ones or something like that. But granted, I'm gonna give it that it seems like Advanced Warfare was supposed to kind of be that big step from the way they marketed it, at least. Not sure if they achieved any of that, but
I don't think it was that big step. But Roberto would know.
I mean, they did try to do something new, which was the exosuit, which gives the characters a lot more mobility in the game, so you can actually jump up really high. But honestly, I felt Titanfall executed that a lot better.
Right. Yeah, so again, it wasn't even, maybe they didn't even know Titanfall was doing that when they started, but in the end, it ended up not even being as much of a new thing because we already had Titanfall in the same year, So it's tough, but it's tough to keep like the ideas fresh and the game's good. At the same time, they're just trying to keep their business rolling with games selling every year and that kind of stuff. But Rockstar does it. Rockstar comes out with a GTA every 5 years, and every time they do it, it's a big event,
Yeah.
And everybody buys it.
It's true. And there's not that many changes to the game usually, but everyone loves it. Every 5 years, everyone's like, GTA!
Mainly because it's a sandbox and they work more on the immersiveness of the world you're in.
Right.
That's true. Anytime you have a sandbox or JRPG, it takes a lot more time to actually make the game. Because, it's you're increasing the scope of the game by, like, tenfold almost, because it's a world that you're literally creating, so people can explore it.
I assume the quality assurance for that is crazy as well. It's like all the tests that they probably have to do.
Yeah, that's if you think about it, Elder Scrolls Shadows weren't great, but if you think about how much they had to create in that game, they're gonna miss some things, and it's just you can't cover everything, but people will find it because once you release the game, you have like over 5 million testers going at the same time, so.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's about time for me to wrap it up. We've been talking for about 1 hour and 15 minutes here, which is pretty good. Thank you so much for listening to Real Game Talk. If you have any questions or you want to tell your opinion about some of the stuff we discussed, recommend a topic to be discussed on the podcast, which actually we would love, you can always email rgtcast@gmail.com or tweet at rgtpodcast on Twitter, obviously. And if you want to see the other stuff that I, Daniel Lima, your host, is working on, actually, I don't even think I introduced myself in this episode, which I probably should have done. I'm Daniel Lima, by the way. My personal Twitter account is at LimaDanielM. Alright, so you can reach me out in there. And you can find this podcast on iTunes by just searching for Real Game Talk. We're supposed to post a new episode every Thursday. We posted the first one on a Thursday and then we missed last week, but hopefully it will go smoothly from now on. And please go ahead and tell where can they find you, Roberto.
You can find me pretty much on Twitter or online as RJR2992.
Great. Kleker?
You can find me on the internet. The one thing I go by the most is Bowkleks, which is BOWKLEKS. You can find me on my Twitter account, which is OKleker, OHKLEKER.
Yeah, Kleker Kleker throws some amazing quotes from time to time, and we just get that and throw in a Twitter, all of us. So that's a lot of fun. If you are listening to this and you're also interested in anime by any chance, you can check out the anime podcast that we all do together, and that's hosted by our good friend CJ at Pseudo_pod on Twitter. You can check most of the news for that podcast, or you can just look for Pseudo Random Podcast on iTunes or now on YouTube. Actually, I should announce this right now. So if you're listening to this somewhere else, at this point we probably have our YouTube channel set up already, which is called Pseudo Random Entertainment. And you can go and check that out by just looking for that name on YouTube, and we're going to be there. So, see you later. Check out our stuff. Keep tuned for the next episode of Real Game Talk right here on Pseudo Random Entertainment. Bye.
See you guys later.